सहाय वार श्री भगवती जी की पातशाही दसवीं प्रथम भगवती सिमर कै गुरु नानक लें ते आए फिर अंगत गुर ते अमरदास रामदास स्यामी सहाय अर्जुन हर गोबिंद नो सिमरो श्री हर राय श्री हर कृष्ण ते आई है जिस डिठे सब दुख जाए तेग बहादुर सिमरिया कर नाउन दे आवे धाए सब थाई वै सहाय दसवां पातशाह श्री गुरु गोबिंद सिंह साहिब सब थाई वै सहाय दसां पातशाहियां दी जोत श्री गुरु ग्रंथ साहिब जी दे पाठ दीदार दा ध्यान धर के बोलो जी वाहिगुरू नमाणियां दे मान निताणियां दे तान न्योटियां दी ओर सच्चे पिता वाहिगुरू आप जी दे हजूर अरदास बेनती जोदड़ी है जी 1985 विच जो एयर इंडिया फ्लाइट नंबर 182 ਵਿੱਚ 329 ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਜਾਨਾਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਸਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਅਤੇ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਹਨ ਅਰਦਾਸਾਂ ਬੇਨਤੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਬਖਸ਼ਣੀ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਹਿਰਦੇ 'ਚ ਵਸਾਈ ਰੱਖਣੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਦਿਵਾਉਣਾ ਜੀ ਸਮੂਹ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਈਆਂ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੁੱਖ ਹੋਵੇ ਨਾਮ ਚਿੱਤ ਆਵੇ ਨਾਨਕ ਨਾਮ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ तेरे पाने सरबत दा वाहिगुरू जी का खालसा वाहिगुरू जी की फतेह बोले सो निहाल वाहिगुरू जी का खालसा वाहिगुरू जी की फतेह लेडीज एंड जेंटलमैन 38 years ago the worst terrorist attack in Canadian history happened. We are here to extend our comfort and support to families who are still in shock and still they are waiting for justice. We have prayed to Vaheguru, to Lord, to God, to extend, to give them strength and give them justice and Chardhi Kala. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji.
Thank you. Today we've come together and I want to express my appreciation to the community for joining us here today, in particular for family members and for those who have suffered great loss as a result of Air India 182 and the killing, the murder of 329 people on that plane. You will know just about every year my wife, Renee Sarajidi Saklakar, who lost her aunt and uncle, Zebediza and Umar Jethwa, doctors Jethwa, on that flight. This year, Renee's mum has passed away in the past year, and her uncle, Zeb's brother and sister, passed away, and so they're all together in Toronto this year, so she's not with us this year, but of course, she's with us in spirit, and for everyone here passes on her thoughts. 38 years ago today, 329 people murdered on India Flight 182. 2 Japanese airport workers, baggage handlers, murdered at Narita Airport in Japan, indicating that those who killed the 329 wished to kill more that day. As Renee has written eloquently about, she's written about the subject as many people have. 82 children under the age of 12. 82 children under the age of 12 on that flight. Why was that the case? Because it was June 23rd and school had just ended. And those that blew up the planes, those who committed these acts of murder, knew that. Knew there would be children on the plane, knew there would be lots of children on the plane, and they did it anyway. And of course, all of the families have lived through the extraordinary circumstances since. The fact that, while one person has been held accountable, those that committed this act have not been held accountable to this day in Canadian courts. And this is a source, of course, of deep pain. But I do want to focus on one thing at a personal level. That Irfan Jethwa, who was Renee's cousin, who lost his mom and dad that day, who went from being the son of 2 doctors to being an orphan, and that day, without as much support as maybe he could have had, Today is in his 40s, has his own family and children. I'm so proud of him. He has shown such great courage, and he lives, a person of the Muslim faith, in Gujarat, in continuing challenging times, as you can imagine. And so we so admire him and his actions, and all of the families that we can think of today, my friend Major Sidhu and everyone else who've been through it, and have held fast to the need for justice and held fast to their families and the ones they love, especially the children who passed away. So I'm really honored that representatives of all levels of government are here to express their solidarity with the families. And I want to start, and I'm going to introduce some of the people here. I want to start by especially expressing my appreciation to the counselors and school trustees and the park board trustees of the city of Vancouver, who've done a really exceptional job at preparing the site today and have been part of this and have joined us in large numbers, and I will introduce them later. But I want to thank them in particular for their contribution and their support of this occasion, which is so important in our city, and I want to thank Mayor Sim in particular for that support. The first speaker we're going to ask to speak is the Consul General of India, Manish, and Mr. General Manish, I want to welcome you to the platform.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, families of the victims of Air Kaniska 182 tragedy, we have gathered here today to celebrate, commemorate, and pay homage to the 38th anniversary of this horrific act, which happened on 23rd June 1985. The background, all of you are aware. 329 innocent lives were lost. Passengers were killed, victims being Canadians and other foreign nationals, including Indian nationals and including many children. We have amongst us many of the family members who lost their loved ones. On behalf of Government of India and the Consul General of India in Vancouver, I convey my sincere condolences. My prayers are with the family members, with the people who lost their loved ones in this dastardly act of terrorism, which was worst in the aviation history of any country and in the Canadian aviation history. Though 38 years have passed since this cowardly act, terrorism unfortunately assumed proportion of an existential threat to the international peace and security. It knows no borders, nationality, race, and is a challenge that international community faces and needs to combat collectively. Over the years, India has led from the front to counter terrorism with the support from like-minded countries, including Canada. I would like to quote my External Affairs Minister, who stated, "Combating terrorism is a battle in which there is no respite. The world cannot afford attention deficit or tactical compromises." The spirit of this statement is the best tribute to the victims of the Air India Flight 182 Kaniska. And once again, I thank all the leaders from Government of British Columbia, City of Vancouver leaders, and all the friends who have gathered here to pay homage and to remember the victims of this tragedy. We should not forget this tragedy, and as we just read today in Vancouver Sun, that we need to pass this important message that of terrorism to our younger generation, so that they become a good citizens and also can contribute positively to the society. Thank you once again, and we hope that through this memorial, the families here will find some solace and in their grief.
Thank you very much, Consul General, and I now want to introduce someone who is familiar with this project, where we are, this monument to those that lost their lives in Air India Flight 182. My the federal member of parliament, Talib Nur Mohammed, who in a previous role played a very significant role in the development of monuments here and in other Canadian communities. And I know he had to come a long way to be here today, and I'm very moved and appreciative that he's here, and I'd like to welcome him to the microphone.
Thank you, Minister. It's an honor and a privilege to be standing here on this site, reflecting on the lives of the 331 people that were killed at the hands of terrorists on June 23rd, 1985. You know, as Adrian says, sometimes what we do becomes very personal. And for me, the privilege that I had of working first on the Air India review and then working with the families is something that has stayed with me my entire life. It will stay with me my entire life. But what stayed with me is something that I think we should all reflect on as part of this. We reflect on the lives that were lost, a potential future Prime Minister, potential doctors, lawyers, those 82 children, those 280 Canadians that never came home. But what we also need to remember is that as a country, we failed every single one of those families at that time. It is time that every single Canadian across this country understand that this tragedy, what happened on June 23rd, is a Canadian tragedy, a conspiracy that was hatched, executed, and implemented on Canadian soil against Canadians. Just because it was an Air India flight and the names were foreign doesn't mean it wasn't a Canadian tragedy, because it was. And it's all the more important now that as we lose generations of people that remember what happened, that we do not forget, that we keep educating, and that we take the time to ensure that people understand the impact that this has had, not just on you, the families, but on our entire country and the psyche of this nation. So when I was elected, one of the things that happened is that there are two members of the Air India victims' families that are incredibly close to me, Jayshree and Venu Thampi, who lost their loved ones, and they were both at my swearing in. And Jayshree said something to me that evening after the swearing in that has stayed with me, and she said, now that you are in the position that you are, please make sure Canadians don't forget us. And that is something that I know all of us up here and all of you take on every day. But I want to say to all of the family members that are here, this is not your burden to bear, that is for us. That is for all of us who are in elected office to make sure that the failure that happened 38 years ago no longer happens. And all of us, I know Adrian has been doing this for far longer than I have. Adrian and I were in Parks Board meetings where we were fighting to make sure this got built. That you have had to take resistance every step of the way in commemorating and remembering, and we will not let that happen anymore. And so I want to say to all of you, thank you for allowing me to be part of this process for the last almost 20 years. Please know that every single one of us stands with you. We love you. We will not forget what happened that day, and we will do everything we can to make sure that never happens again. And we pray and we remember all those that were lost, because they were our family as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Talib, and I wanted to have the opportunity to introduce former Premier of British Columbia, Attorney General of British Columbia, former Federal Minister, and someone who knows of the issues involved and the times involved from tough personal experience. And with all respect, the Honourable former Premier of British Columbia, Vigil Desage.
Thank you very much. At times like this, words do escape some people, and I'm one of those sometimes. As I was standing there listening to Talib, I was thinking, not to make it political, Talib, but I was thinking, did the Prime Minister of our country attend a memorial today in the memory of Air India victims? Did the Governor General of our country attend a memorial today? in memory of the victims of Air India? Statements are fine. They can be rattled off the computers. Where is that personal commitment that is required for us to cross the bridge from non-acceptance of this particular tragedy as a Canadian tragedy to fully embracing this tragedy as a Canadian tragedy? And part of the reason, I believe you inadvertently used the word foreign names. I know you didn't mean to use it. But my name is not foreign. I've been in Canada since 1968. Canada has all kinds of names. Khans and Singhs and Dubois and you name it, like, you know, Smiths and whatever else. Canada is a repository of the world's names, in a sense. And the reference to the names reminded me why it is that we have not been able to accept this tragedy as Canadians. Why more of us don't know about it. Why more of us don't care about it. That is because most of the people that died were brown people. And many Canadians at the time, and we were all involved in those struggles, many of the Canadians at that time thought this has something to do with what happened way back in Punjab, 15,000 miles away. Well, no matter what the cause, no matter what may have motivated people, these were Canadian terrorists who committed an act of terror upon other Canadians. Why should the color of those Canadians matter? It still does. That's why people don't remember. Do you think the President of the United States of America would not have made it to a commemorative moment for 9/11 if he was still alive and able to walk? He would have. I'm not sure whether the Prime Minister has made it, Governor General's made it. I looked at the news, I didn't see anything other than a statement. So what I really want to say is, Shashi Kaur is here. She obviously commissioned a poll that very few Canadians remember this tragedy. It is the largest Canadian mass murder in the history of our country, and we don't know it, and many of us don't think it's Canadian. And that is, in fact, a tragedy that needs to be rectified. So if I can say to the Prime Minister, if you're still the Prime Minister next year, Mr. Prime Minister, do attend this memorial. Make us proud to be Canadians, people who don't look like you, people whose skins are brown or black or other kinds. Make us feel proud as Canadians. Attend a memorial. I say the same to the Governor General. Attend the memorial next year if you haven't done so this year. That is how we will all feel as Canadians. That is how all Canadians will then embrace this tragedy as theirs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Premier. Thank you, John. I wanted to introduce you to some of the people who are here, who have been, I think, in different communities, very, very supportive of Air India families. My colleagues in the legislature, George Chow and Brenda Bailey, Ginny Sims are all here, and I so appreciate both their support and their actions that have been consistent over time in support of the families of those who lost their lives on Air India. I want to acknowledge my colleague in the legislature, Eleanor Sturko, is here. Nice to see you. Thank you very much for coming. I want to acknowledge the many members of Vancouver City Council, Park Board, and School Board here. Councillor Mike Klassen, thank you. Councillor Lenny Zoe, School Board, Councillor Victoria Young, Priti Faridko, Brennan Bestiavansky, who are representatives, Mary Claire Howard, all representatives of the City of Vancouver, the School Board of Vancouver, the Park Board of Vancouver. We're so appreciative of your commitment and your presence. I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce a former colleague in the legislature who has been deeply involved in these issues as well over time. Former colleague, former member of the legislature from Surrey, Dave Hare, to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Thank you very much to everybody who has found time to come over here today to remember all the 331 victims, which is from the largest mass murder in Canadian history. As it was said before, the bomb that was created here by the people who are Canadian, who are living in here, and it's a Canadian tragedy. I mean, when I look around, it looks like the United Nations here. People from all different backgrounds, different colors, different religions are represented here. And that's what the Canada is all about. It is not just the way it used to be, probably mostly British and French, but now it is, and the First Nation who were here for thousands of years, our original people, but now we have people from all over. Sadly enough, as Ujjal has said, this has been forgotten, as the Seshi's poll has talked about it. Everybody I talked to the last 2 days, the first thing they ask, how come more Canadians don't know about it? And I tell them, I said, you know, many people don't have personal connection to it, and so they don't talk about it. I'm talking about elected people. Adrian Dix does have a connection because his wife. I tell them, I said, look, we used to be from different political parties, but on one thing, we were always 100% together on Air India memorial service, looking after the victims. Because it's not what the religion was, even though Air India victims were not just Indians, like 286 were Canadians and over 82 kids. They were also some Americans, some British. And people always tell me, you know, if all these people who died, if they were from a Caucasian background, not mostly from people's perception, Indo-Canadian background, would the results be different with the investigation? Every day when I talk to people about it, they bring the issue, would the police forces, intelligence department done differently? You know, Gary Bass, a former deputy commissioner of RCMP, is here. I mean, he's the one person, when I went to Ireland for 20th memorial service, where the Prime Minister Martin was there, and opposition leader Harper was there, right? And Gordon Campbell was there, and I was there with my wife, and Major Sidhu and his family was there with other family victims. It was the first time the Canadian government actually recognized this is our tragedy, not India's tragedy or somebody else's tragedy. And I had some other people talk to me. They said maybe we should be talking about the worst mass murder in Canadian history, and that we can remember in the schools, so the kids can understand from it. So I had one of the person asked me even today. I said, you know, I have one good friend, Adrian Dix, who's in government right now, who can probably work with the Minister of Education very easily and Premier say, can we fix it? As the opposition is very difficult. I'm sorry to say, when I was in government for 12 years, we weren't able to fix it. Maybe Adrian can have a better luck at it. And it's only the people who have personal connection who always talk about it, because you have personal connection. And I was in France in 1985 when Air India flight was blown up over Ireland. And then I remember that day just like yesterday. And only lucky part was the second bomb that was sent through CP Air to Tokyo, that blew up early. Otherwise, it would have killed probably another 329 people, because they were destined to blow up another Air India flight. And other bomb was from CP Air, went from Vancouver to Toronto. If that had gone up early, it would have blown up CP Air, not Air India flight. If it had gone up on the way to Tokyo, it would have blown up CP Air, not some baggage handlers, right? I think the reaction would have been different. I think we have to learn from the mistakes. Sometimes it's easy to talk about the mistake after the fact, but still we have to learn from it so we don't make it again, right? We want to make sure that kids from all different backgrounds, regardless where your grandparents, the parents, or great-grandparents are born, you understand about this tragedy so it doesn't happen again. So our young generation who are raised here, they don't say, and I used to get called, why are you still talking about it? It was so long ago, 38 years ago. You know, when I talk to the victims, for them the pain is just like yesterday. You know, if you lose your mom and dad, you know, it doesn't go away over time. You still remember it when I talk to the victims. So I don't want to repeat a lot of the stuff that was said before me, but I think we all need to work together, all three levels of the government, including the federal government. I remember 2007 when Harper was the prime minister, they put the wall there. And after that, this wall was not really cleaned up much until this time. I talked to one of the Parks Board Commission that I knew. I said, look, you're my cousin, and hey, but you still talk to your department, please clean it up. And so she said, look, it's going to be done. I was happy to see actually Vancouver Parks Board did it. I want to say thank you to the Vancouver Parks Board taking the responsibility. If that was not Air India Memorial, I don't think they would have left it like that, right? So I hope from now on, the Parks Board, regardless who is in government in the municipality, they will take on every year to clean this, because this deserves to be recognized, because it is the worst mass murder in Canadian history and worst mass murder in aviation before 9/11 in the world history. So thank you to all the politicians coming over. Thank you to all the family members and friends and community and the media coming over, so the message will go around Canada at least, and also of the younger generations, also the middle-aged people who might have forgotten about it. And thank you for doing a survey that actually allowed the politicians to see people don't remember it because we don't talk about it. Many people tell me when politicians talk about Air India disaster, mass murder, sometimes they get a call from small minority of people saying, please don't talk about it, they stop. When there's other murders, mass murders, most of the politicians, they line up to speak every year, year after year, issue press statements, make speeches about it, except when it comes to Air India. I hope after this year, things will change. I'm really hoping and praying for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. I wanted to, we've heard, of course, and there are historical and political implications. I'm very honored of the words that have been spoken today. But at its core, of course, this is about those that lost their lives, not the violent and vicious murderers, but those who lost their lives and their families who have pushed through and maintained their calls for justice across this country and indeed across the world, who have pushed through and lived lives of such integrity amidst really what is a shadow of grief. My mother-in-law lost, as you know, as I said earlier, her younger sister, the star of the family. She was a gynecologist in Mumbai who did poverty medicine. You can imagine the loss of that. And Danu passed away this year. She never overcame that. It always stayed with her. It was always a fundamental thing. And we have, of course, the family and dear friends of mine, Major Sidhu. I see Amar here, who has spoken with such courage and in the past and such clarity on this question, and it's really my great honor, and it's a great honor of my life to know the Sidhu family. It's my great honor to introduce Gurdeal Sidhu to say a few words on behalf of their family.
Good evening, everyone. I'm not going to say many words because ahead of me, everyone explains. As we know, we are gathered here to pay the respect 329 people. Everyone's presence a lot means to the victim families. 320 people plus 2 at Narita Airport. This is the biggest loss in Canadian and Indian history. In our family, we lost 3 members. My husband's sister, Sukhvinder Uppal, niece Parminder, and nephew Kuldeep Uppal. This happened at the Island Ocean in the sky. I really appreciate the people, Irish people and the Irish government. They really took care about the victims' families when does it happen. and plus they make the memorial over there. I thankful for the Harper government because they made a wall and put the names and on the victims. And also they did the inquiry, but the result was hopeless. We are still hoping for the justice. The result was hopeless. I like to pass the message to all the communities. We all from the different nation, different color, different country, but we all God's creation. We supposed to help each other like a bunch, because the bunch is more stronger than a stick. I'm still requesting if someone has any evidence, anything, so come forward. Thank you, everyone again. ਮੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਗਤਿਆਲਪੁਰ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੀ ਆਇਆਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਆ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ। ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਏਅਰ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਟ੍ਰੈਜਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵਰਸਟ ਟ੍ਰੈਜਡੀ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ 329 ਮੈਂਬਰ ਤੇ ਪਲੱਸ 2 ਨਰੀਤਾ ਏਅਰਪੋਰਟ ਦੇ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਸੀਗੇ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਵਿਛੜ ਗਏ ਸਨ। ਆਇਰਲੈਂਡ ਦੀ ਧਰਤੀ ਤੇ ਘਟਨਾ ਵਾਪਰੀ ਸੀਗੀ। ਉੱਥੋਂ ਦੀ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਤੇ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਦੇ ਵਰਕਰ ਤੇ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਦੇ ਰਹਿਣ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਿਕਟਮਸ ਦੀ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਦੀ ਵੱਧ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਮਦਦ, ਪਿਆਰ, ਸਿੰਪਥੀ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਕਦੀ ਵੀ ਭੁਲਾਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੀ। ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਹਾਰਪਰ ਦੀ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਨੇ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਤਾਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਪਰ ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟ ਕੋਈ ਸੈਟੀਸਫਾਈਡ ਵਾਲਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀਗਾ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। 38 ਸਾਲ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਹਨ, ਹਾਲੇ ਵੀ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਦੀ ਉਡੀਕ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਾਂ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਘਟਨਾ ਨਾ ਕਦੀ ਹੋਵੇ। ਤੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੇਰਾ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਆ, ਕਾਸਟ, ਕਲਰ, ਰਿਲੀਜਨ ਤੋਂ ਉੱਪਰ ਉੱਠ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਦੀ ਮਦਦ ਕਰੋ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ। ਤੇ ਹਾਲੇ ਵੀ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਡੀਕ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈਗੇ ਹਾਂ। ਤੇ ਸਟਿਲ ਮੈਂ ਰਿਕੁਐਸਟ ਕਰਦੀ ਹਾਂ, ਕਮ ਫਾਰਵਰਡ ਇਫ ਸਮਨ ਹੈਜ਼ ਐਨੀ ਐਵੀਡੈਂਸ ਔਰ ਐਨੀ ਕਲੂ। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ।
Thank you, Gurdiel. And as we go, I just invite people, and I want to thank everyone who's come today. Because I think, not everyone knows someone who passed away on Air India Flight 182. All of us suffer loss and grief and understand loss and grief. The people of Ireland who so welcomed the families in the days after their family member's death and the bombing of Air India Flight 182. We have members of the Armenian Canadian community there, a community that here today who understands loss, and I think all of us do. So I really invite everybody after it's over to look at the names and imagine them, and imagine the lives they would have led, the lives that were lost, and hold their families and their own loved ones in their heart. And join to me for the next minute in silence in remembrance of those that lost their lives on Air India Flight 182 and at the Narita Airport in Japan. Thank you. And thank you very much for coming.